Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Live Chat with Josey, guests, a colleague. I will not say much. We will ask her to introduce herself. So, Wanjiku, welcome to the show. As usual, this is a culture on Live Chat with Josey. We asked you to introduce yourself. Tell us about yourself. Where were you born? Which school did you go to? How was it? Everything we want to know.
The answers to some of those questions could just give you access to my bank account, so I might not give all those answers. However,
Okay.
so my name is Wanjiku Mwaurah,
Mhm.
and I am a journalist at Deutsche Welle. And before that, I was working in Kenya, and I studied and grew up in Kenya, in Nairobi. I like to say I'm a village girl, actually. However, because of governmental changes, my village is now part of the bigger city. So I am partly a city girl. I'm also a poet, an author, a trainer, a journalistic trainer, and I have many caps on my head.
Where were you born? When were you
In,
born? Which school did you go to?
I went to, if I'm counting from nursery school, I went to 4 schools. And I like to joke that I went to university while I was still about 6 years old, because I went to Kenyatta University Nursery School back then. Back then when there was
Is that my yes, you're back, right?
like I never
Can you hear
left.
me?
Yes.
Let's start from you went to Kenyatta University. Is it Nursery University or Nursery School?
Kenyatta University Nursery School.
Oh my word. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right. So yeah, when did you leave the country? When did you leave Kenya?
That was in 2016. And like I often say, the plan wasn't to move to Germany at all. Not. But here I am 4 years later and counting. And so far, I like it here. I have found a great community of friends and I enjoy what I do here. So I really have nothing to complain.
Is that the only reason?
Why I have no reason to complain? Like I said, some of these answers.
You get the love of your life here as well.
Yeah, next. So you need to invite me again, and then next time I can be sure to give you some more. Okay?
Okay. All right, let's get down to business. I know you're someone who's very passionate about women. Yeah, we always talk about these issues, and I hope we will have more topics in regards to women. I mean, of course, gender advocacy. There's a lot that you're telling me about that we're discussing about. But today we are talking about family planning, which is something that is very dear to your heart. And just take us through the topic. What exactly do you understand when they say family planning, or why is it that poor people have more children?
Um, so yes, these two topics are intertwined, family planning and the question that you ask, why poor people have more children. What I understand with family planning is the the access to information first and the access to the tools for family planning. However, this is often not always the case. Like I said, I acknowledge my privilege, being that I went to the same university I started my nursery in. And while we were there, there was the university sex health clinic. I don't quite remember the name, but this was a separate clinic from the health unit, where everyone would go. This is where people would go for information about family planning and so on. But it wasn't quite, the information about this particular part of the health unit wasn't very open knowledge. It was, you had someone, like, hey, come, there's something here. So it was often a reactive measure. Family planning was then a reactive measure. And that was the first time that I came into better to better understand family planning, because we went there with my friend. I am still curious, but I was even more curious then. And they explained to us the different methods of family planning in a very open way and non-judgmental way. Now, when it comes to the question, why do poor people have more children? I have a question to bounce back to you. Is it that poor people have more children because they're poor, or do they become poor because they have more children? Because when we look at, for example, the Orthodox community of Jews, who are historically quite wealthy, they also have more children, but they're wealthy. So it then becomes a very, very touchy and sensitive topic to ask this question because of that particular thing. Is it that poor people become poor because of more children, or do they get more children because of poverty?
Okay, so I mean, the background that I grew up in, back in Africa, I mean, of course, I grew up in I can't say we're rich, just we're comfortable, you understand? But I don't think our African parents look at their surroundings before they decide children they want to have, you understand? And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they don't even think about family planning. I come from a very big family. I think we're a family of about 10, you understand? I feel like if we're maybe we could have we could have had more, or our lives would have been at least better than the way we grew up. So from my own background, that don't you think our African parents should look at that as well? We can't talk about rich people. They have more kids because obviously they can afford it. So how about
I
those
think
families that they end up having 10?
and they can't afford it.
Yes.
I think there are two things that you have pointed out, which I find more and more the more I read about family, I read about the individual development and so on. You've pointed out a very important thing, that you think that if you would have been fewer, you would have had more access to many more things. And I would agree with you. I think and I feel that the generation of our parents and before them, the generation before our parents, the, we have to acknowledge certain things, that the environment in which they lived meant that children could die at any time before the age of 5 because of many reasons, right?
Actually. Mm-hmm.
And then when we look at that one, we see why then the parents would be pulled to having more children, just in case one or three of them will survive and they will be able to take care of me in my old age. That was one very valid thinking. And that brings us to the next thing, which is that we do not have the policies, we do not have the structures as a community, as different African countries. We don't have the structures where you can go to the government and actually get money as an old person. I remember we used to raise money for an organization that took care for the elderly while we were in primary school, because whatever the government said they were doing wasn't enough. So it became a sort of a survival tactic, so to speak, in their old age, that they would have more children, and hopefully a few of these many children that they've gotten will be successful like you are, and that they will be able to send support to them when they are much older. And when you look at this, I honestly can understand that part. However, I agree with you that when it comes to more parents, more children, sorry, that parents, uh, I'm not sure, but majority of them didn't have the luxury of thinking perhaps I should be more emotionally available to all of my parents or all of my children. So for them, it was providing education, providing you want food, here is food, education, go ye and conquer the
As long
world.
as
But
as
there
long
was
as you have
no this.
steamer, as long as there's steamer and meat, that's it.
Exactly. Sadza, you have this,
That's
and
yeah.
then you go find your way around it. But this emotional part of parenting, and I think this, anyone who's listening to us right now can attest that many of our parents could never say, I love you. I love you what? I provide food for you.
I
Is that not love
never
enough?
got to hear
I
that.
give you
Only now. I'm blessed that
you
both my
know.
parents are still alive, and I'm only hearing it now.
Yeah.
But when I was growing up, when I grew up, I never heard those words from my parents.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm,
So it presents a different perspective to this conversation about family planning. Are you having children just because you want to have children, or are you actually considering the fact that you need to be emotionally there for your children, that you need to learn that your children are not your belonging, so to speak, but rather they are developing into people of their own, and therefore it's your duty to gently and obviously sometimes with tough love guide them through it. So you need to be present there, not that you go and figure out life on your own out in the street. You're called, Nairobi is sometimes called the stone gang because of the con artists that are there. You go to Nairobi, you're conned, and then you realize, so you should not trust strangers because you come from a very close community where almost everyone is your relative.
mhm. Okay, so Wanjiku, I
And
got some people
yes.
saying comments and some questions in the inbox because I'm sure their husbands are also on Twitter or on social media or whatever. One lady said that she's actually got 8 children simply because of peer pressure. Her
Oh.
mother-in-law expected her to have a child every year. She
First
goes
of all,
on, she
okay.
actually goes on to ask me for assistance during this
Mm.
coronavirus times that it's difficult to feed the children. So with such cases,
I would be a little careful to talk about the children that are already there. They are here. We're not discussing their humanity. We're not discussing whether they should be here or not. That is not the
mm,
purpose of our discussion. So to anyone listening, this is not the premise of our discussion at all. Um, I'd like to address something about her question, which is that her mother-in-law rather, expected her to have a child every year.
mm,
First of all, it's not healthy. Your body needs to recover. This is a recommendation given by the doctors. Your body gets exhausted having children every year. And sometimes when you look at it, even though the older generation especially, and even now still, people are still having more children, there is a pacing of the children. You can still have many children. I mean, if you start having children at say 20, you have at least 20 more years and over that you can keep having children, right? But you can pace them. And perhaps this is for any other person who is facing this kind of pressure from the in-laws, especially. Please don't give in. Don't give in. Do whatever it
but if you
is
say don't,
possible
if
not
you
to
say
give.
don't give in, it's either you stay or you do what
Yes.
we want. Then what do you expect these women to do? Sometimes there are conditions. These are conditions that women are finding themselves in.
That's true. That's true. And again, so like I said, and maybe if anyone is joining us and didn't catch this, I'd like to emphasize two things. When it comes to family planning, there are two levels, so to speak. There's the policy level, and then there's the individual level. And this particular case is on the individual level, right?
Mm,
In this case, she already has 8 children. I think even she can see it's not, if she's asking you for help to feed these children, even she can see it's maybe not a very good idea to keep having the children if there is no way of providing for them, right? But we do not know her situation properly. We do not know if she's somewhere where she can access healthcare, if she can even access contraception. So these things are still missing. However, if there's someone who's newly married and then the in-laws are already starting to say, it's month 6, are you not pregnant still? Um, I think this is where, if I may even just paraphrase the Bible a little bit, this is where the Bible says you should be as shrewd as a snake. Get your
But the
contraception,
Bible, but
get
the
it.
same Bible also, I see a comment here also say you should be fruitful and multiply.
I saw this, which brings us to the now societal level where it's the religion again and faith. But where I'm standing from, and I do realize that I am coming from a point of privilege, of the privilege of being able to talk about sexual and reproductive health with my mother specifically and with the women around me. I understand that privilege because it's not every woman who's able to talk about it. And hopefully when they are watching us, they can, I don't know, ask us what we would do if we were in their situation, and we can share this, right? I see a comment coming in here that Islam encourages family planning, and that is good
Mm.
for both the mother and the children. See, even religion is supporting you to take care of your body. So if there's any woman who's watching, especially younger women, or any woman who needs encouragement, I think this is the platform where we can talk about everything. So when it comes to being shrewd, if you're being forced to have a child, you really need to ask yourself a couple of questions. Do you want it first? And once you've decided you either want it, then you know what to do. Do the thing and get
No,
your baby, right?
Wanjiku,
But when you are at the point,
you go on.
where do I begin?
Okay, I was about to say that if you don't want it, and then there are some women that also fall pregnant by mistake, and our laws in most, I think most of the African countries do not even encourage
Yes,
abortion.
yes.
So abortion is
In
illegal.
Rwanda, in fact, you
Then
could get arrested. They arrested young children who had been raped and gotten pregnant for abortion. If you do not want the child, or if you, so are you asking for the opportunities for what to do when you're already pregnant, or?
okay, so this is the issue. You meet a man
Yes,
who believes that who doesn't believe in family planning. I remember when I was discussing with you, you told me, I think it was you that was telling me about a scenario where a woman had to be hiding these family planning pills in the garden and stuff like
in the
that,
garden. Mhm.
things like that. Okay, we won't talk up against humanity here. Let's talk about this particular woman who already has 8 children, and the husband still expects her. He wants to reach to 10, and the 8 that are there already, she can't take care of them.
So what she should do now?
And it is too late in my opinion, I feel like it is too late for her to walk out with 8 children. She could have maybe probably when it was the first, the second, but now already these are 8 children. It's either she stays and have the extra two.
No, absolutely
so
no,
so so
absolutely
so
no,
no, I'm
absolutely
asking
no.
because she's listening. So what does she do? Because the
I
husband wants her to have 10 children.
Yes, yes. So is the husband inside her womb? No. Only she, the woman, can truly determine what comes in, to be very honest. And if there's a dispensary close to her, and she can trust the medical officers, for example, she definitely should go and find out what options there are. She can. This would be my advice for her. If she really does not want to have more children, please go to the nearest dispensary, to the nearest health center, even go to a different, town, for example, if you want to keep your privacy. If it's a small knit community, tight knit community, and you're afraid that the health officer will tell your husband this is what she came to do, then go to a different town. But I strongly believe that all women should take charge of their uteruses, of their wombs, of their entire bodies, and they should decide when they are ready to have children. This I am not even getting shaken by. So I feel she doesn't need to stay and still have two extra children that she is not ready for, and she says she is not ready for. She should go and look at all of this. Our governments are always saying, yeah, our public clinics have, have female condoms, for example. They have this 3-month injection. They have the IUD, the T wire that gets inserted into your uterus. They keep saying they have this. So it's up to her now to take that extra step, look for a place that she can trust, a health unit that she can trust, and find what her options are. Because I believe it is very easy to tell your if the husband is not listening, you don't even need to discuss. If he's not listening, then you're not avoiding saying the truth because you're not talking about it
So
anyway,
so 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 in
But she
in
definitely
other
needs
words,
to take charge.
in other words, now she's going to lie. Why are you not falling
There
pregnant?
is
I
no
have no
lie.
idea.
Where did I
Thou shalt not lie.
I'm not
But
saying she
anyway,
lied. No, I'm not saying she
yeah.
lied.
On a very serious note, this is a very sad story because she's definitely confused. She's down. She doesn't know what to do. But for her to have gotten to 8, this was my first question. And the mother-in-law died, so she said, when she had the 7th child. So my question to her was, why then did you now continue to have, since you said it was the mother-in-law, it was not your husband?
Mhm.
Initially, it was actually the mother-in-law and the husband. So,
I think I see a comment here by Anne Zioka who says women should stand up for themselves and say no to peer pressure and to family. Oftentimes, those friends and family will not help you raise all those kids. And this is just the truth of the matter. You know, when you are in a sort of middle class, you have a bit of leeway economically. I think you definitely need to do a little more. I think women shouldn't remain the holier than thou, and I do not know anything that happens after this part of my body. No, I think we need really to take charge of our sexual reproductive health. Like I was saying, when I went in campus, so I was in my early 20s, and this lady asked me, so do you have children? I said, no. Then she went on to give me different options of family planning. And then she said, we do not recommend this long term, the 10-year plans, either the implant or the IUD that we just mentioned. I do not recommend this to young children, younger women, because you'll have trouble giving birth when you get married. They're already planning my life. Like I will get married the next 2 years or so, and therefore I should not get this 10-year plan. But they don't know my plan. So when it comes to attitudes like this, you as the woman need to know what exactly do you want for your as the ideal number of your family. Then, when you have this, when the man comes, or if the man is already there and there's no way of renegotiating, then just do what needs to be done. You are the president of your own womb. That's
but
how I would wrap it up.
Wanjiku, there's also side effects with some of these family planning methods. Would you care to maybe talk about that as well?
Um, I think the best person to do that would be the health practitioner. This is why I keep saying this. I keep insisting that people need to go to the health practitioner because everybody is different. Every body literally is different, right? So I've read about side effects of, for example, the pill making some women add on ridiculous amounts of weight, for instance. I've heard of others who get the IUD who don't get periods completely.
Mm.
And I've heard of others also who get this injection and then they have to wait a much longer time before the hormonal balance comes back into the natural state that they can conceive. So again, these are all anecdotes, and I insist that any woman who is interested in family planning, just go to your health center after this corona situation is over. So make sure you're not caught by police
but
uh,
but, but
after
also
curfew hours.
I'll come back to the corona lockdown and all, but there's a very long comment I see here from Ken T. He says, I have
Yeah.
some other relatives with over dozen of children, and so are families of some of my friends. Considering that USA had such families in earlier years of 20th century and going backwards, then you can conclude that to the older generation, it is about the uncertainties of a child dying from diseases with no cure. That's the need for many
Yeah.
children. However, in our current times in Africa, there are various factors that may lead to a large. Two, cultural ties. Three, ability to
Mm-hmm.
provide. Four, self-willingness. Women to have as many as possible. I have come across some who have openly declared this without being coaxed or forced.
He raises very valid points. Ken, thank you so much for joining, and everyone else who is joining us on the live session. Um, in 2018, I want to address different parts of his comments. I start with the last one. I have come across some women, this is Kenti, who have openly declared that they want as many children as possible without being forced. Now, in 2018, President Macron of France said that present me the woman who decided, being perfectly educated, to have 7, 8, or 9 children. Now, this was said in the context of Africa because, some of our leaders in this world are just special. So this was said in the context of Africa. However, many women online, especially, and this is where again we come to the point where family planning sort of is a heavily classed conversation. It's about class, social class as well. If you have access, then of course you know where you need to go, for example, or you are able to have such conversations in your community. So when he said this, when he said no woman perfectly educated can decide to have 7, 8, or 9 children, you know what happened on Twitter? And you can check this for yourselves if you're watching.
Yeah.
The hashtag postcard for Macron trended. It was women with PhDs having 8, 9 children, 7, 6, mothers who had perfectly smooth nursing careers and very highly, highly educated. Obviously, more in the West. What I saw was more from the West, not from our African context. And that goes to actually support what Ken is saying, that there are women who are willing to have all of these children. And here is where again we go to the two layers that I started with.
Willing
We have
and
the policy
can
level,
afford.
and exactly.
Yeah,
So we have
okay.
the social level and the personal level. So when it comes to the personal level, the woman needs to want to have the children first, not being forced by peer pressure or so, because then that means the mother will be available for the children, ideally. Of course, we know it's not always the case, but ideally, the mother will be available for her children as well as the father, of course. When it comes to, I'll just highlight one thing that he says, that in the USA, early years of 20th century, they had more children. Now, the fertility rate can be very well predicted by the child mortality. If you have a country that does not have adequate health care, that does not empower midwives within communities, that does not ensure that there is prenatal care for the women, that there is postnatal care for the women, then in these communities, you will have women who know their child could die anytime, who know they could die during childbirth. And still, they want to ensure their future. So they will obviously get many children because they don't know, of these 10 children, how many of them will survive. So the more you increase or empower or uh, make your healthcare better, the more you improve it. The more you improve the level of education and the quality of education you're giving to the people, the more you improve the civic education of around everything, not just the education and healthcare, but every other social amenity that governments should provide, the less you have women having as many children and at a young age. In fact, one of the studies that I came across was saying if you increase the years a girl student, a female student spends in school, you decrease the number of the age that she will have children or early marriage by 1 year, if I'm not mistaken. So there is a direct correlation by empowering first the girl child, by educating the girl child and getting them to the level where they decide by themselves, am I ready for a child or not? Am I able to keep off or ward off this peer pressure that I'm having from family, from extended relatives and so on? Then they have the tools to properly navigate some of these issues like culture or even religion. They're able to defend their stand or be very wise about how they go about it. Like I shared with you one story that I was looking at when this conversation was a very big hit on Kenyan Twitter, was one of the doctors said, even the very high profile women ask doctors to tie their tubes during CS, yeah, during
Mm,
the caesarean section,
mm.
just so they don't get more children. And why do they have to do that in secrecy? Because their husbands wouldn't entertain this conversation about family planning. They wouldn't entertain the conversation that, look, I can only take care of this many children. So when the woman has decided this is it, and this is again where it comes to the class, you see, these women can access CS services, are able to communicate that, look, you need to tie my tubes. I do not want any more children. Please, I can't have any, I can't support having any more children. And then you have someone in the village who doesn't have this kind of access, and the only thing they have is maybe the dispensary where people are telling them, ah, you are not thinking of getting a second born. After the second born comes, but there are two only. You should give that man more. And actually, I want to read a comment related to that from Suk Maxino, who is our correspondent we work with. He is based in Ghana, and he said that some families think that success is luck. So the more children they have, the more lucky they are, and other families think the more the children, the more the respect.
Mm.
So it's a
Respect from
cultural, it's a cultural
respect
thing
from who?
from the community. And so
Oh,
when you are able to educate the women, they can say, this respect even, is it going to feed me? Is it going to feed my 23 children? But they need to be at a point where they can decide for themselves. And if they want to have 23 children, okay, 23 is an exaggerated number, but if
mm,
they want to have 23 children, for sure they need to get to the point where they know the health care system can support her children, that all 23 of them will make a very big, happy family up to adulthood. But it should not be what we say in my mother tongue, Kikuyu, or the karata. It means gambling. They shouldn't be
okay.
gambling by giving birth and hoping that, okay, this one will survive.
Now that you mentioned gambling, there was someone also who said that I live in Europe and my neighbor has 7 children now. And the reason she gave me why she keeps giving birth is child benefits.
Yes,
You see, women.
I've had that. But here's
So
the thing.
women do these things
It is
also
by choice.
sometimes for.
But no, wait, it is by choice. See, the
Yes.
society here, particularly, let me just mention Germany, because this is where we are at the moment,
Mm.
says when you have children, we support you. We support you up to when the child is 18 years, if I'm not mistaken, and then they go to university, and then I need to confirm these details, but I think it's up to maximum up to the age of 23 or 25 that the government will give you this Kindergeld, but only if the child is not working at up to this age. Okay, so this woman decided, I want to take advantage of this policy that already exists. It's not a gamble. It's almost given when let's not talk about diseases that are avoidable. uh, let's not talk about big diseases, rather, like we've just said, a woman in a very remote part of Kenya could lose a child because they were bitten by a snake and the dispensary wasn't close enough and then the poison got to them, not things like this. So this child ideally in Germany would live up to 18 years, and these benefits come to the mother. Because of this corona time, the German government has increased this amount to 185 euros. That is about $180. Very, very, very flexible conversion there. $180 per month per child.
Mm.
Okay.
Mm.
So the system is already there to hold the woman. The hospitals, you can go to the hospital. You don't need to have a long queue, or you don't need to think, oh my God, where do I get the money to even go to the hospital, because the doctor's consultation fee is ridiculous. We know this issues, Josey, right? About going to the
Mm.
doctor, and to talk to the doctor, you pay a price. Okay, I'm not saying they should not be paid,
Exactly.
but I'm saying that these are some of the factors that a woman in Africa who's getting a child needs to consider. Here, everyone is under insurance, has insurance. Everyone has insurance. So you're not thinking about this when you get sick, for example. You're not getting sick and sitting down and wondering, all right, I'm sick now, but can I afford to go to the hospital, or should I buy food fast with this money? In a certain part in Kenya, in Zimbabwe, and in many other parts of the continent, you would have to weigh, am I sick enough actually to go to the hospital, or can I hold off and buy food instead for today, and let's see how I feel? And actually, if you're listening and you've had this experience, you can just share with us, because that is the reality. But in Germany, when you get sick, you don't think twice, do I eat or go to the hospital? You go to the hospital. You call an
Mm.
ambulance and they're there within 10 minutes, because the systems are there. So when we're talking about why do poor people have many children, like, it's a very complex situation, but we cannot absolutely ignore the fact that there are so many gaps in our policies, in our structures, that make it so that women have to gamble that at least one of these children will survive up to adulthood and help me in my old age. Here, when you are in your old age in Germany, I'm already paying taxes for someone else who is in retirement, right?
Mm.
How much of our workforce
So much
is
taxes.
formalized? And exactly, we pay taxes. So the whole country is chipping into the national um, social security. In how many? I mean, when I just think about our taxes, first of all, and I think of my country, I can just stop there, because I don't want to be, yeah. But how are our taxes being used in our respective countries? They are not being used. So you see why the I completely understand this notion of having more children. However, and the reason for this discussion is not to debate about the humanity of the children that are already there. That is not it at all.
Mm.
The point of our conversation here is, if there's any young woman who is listening to us and wondering, okay, so what do I do to take control of my womb and decide how many children I can have, if I want to have children? Some of my friends do not want to have
Mm.
children. And I think go you, it's your womb, and you need to have the full power. So if anyone is listening, a young woman is listening and they're wondering, so what can we do? Please get in touch with us.
Yeah. There is a question.
That's all
There
I
are
can
some
say for,
questions
for that particular point.
from our colleague. So I'll just read and answer him.
All right. So the question, Sartan Sanderson, thank you for joining us. Fascinating conversation. I am happy and proud to be working with people like you. Thank you very much. You see me,
Thanks, Saturn.
you all can read the comments on our Facebook. Here's a question. Is there any reverse trend in Africa to have fewer children in order to look more posh and classy? And then he continues, there are cultures in certain developing countries where having only 1 or 2 children is in fashion. So you can look like you can afford, not worrying about the future. Making family planning an issue of class, yes, in a completely different way. Have you seen any trends like that anywhere on the African continent? Um, okay, so the question is there any reverse trend in Africa to have fewer children in order to look more posh or classy? Here is how I think of it. I think the trend, I'm not sure if it's a trend particularly, but in the 80s in Kenya specifically, there was a huge drive by the government to reduce the number of children that people were getting. Around the same time, parents would just graduate. So I'm saying parents like our parents' generation would graduate from university, from high school, and directly into a government job position, complete with the benefits and right. So with this new sort of stability where you can now decide, I have this amount of money, I can have maybe 2 or 3 children instead of 10 or 15 or whatever number, a higher number. I think it came solely because people now had more resources and want to go to extend their education. Number two, they wanted to give their children better than what they had. And yes, I would say around this time is when the trend started of reducing numbers in Kenya specifically, of reducing the number of children in a family. Of course, it wasn't widespread. Of course, this was mostly in the urban centers. In the rural centers, not so much, But in the urban centers, yes. And again, in the urban centers, space was not like in the rural centers where you would have an acre, it's all yours. So you can have wife number one, wife number two, wife number three there, and then you have 23 children. It wasn't like that in the urban centers. There was less space, more confinement, and therefore 23 children would not necessarily make sense. And actually, I would like to recommend a book by a Kenyan author called Marjorie. The title of the book is Coming to Birth. It's a fantastic book that gives you a nice setting of coming to birth of this period where people were transitioning from the rural setting to the urban setting. This is how I think about this trend to have fewer children. I personally haven't come across anyone who's having less children because it's fashion. In fact, many people my age are having less children because they say the children are expensive. They can't afford having children.
Diapers.
Again,
Yeah, you
exactly. They
think
start
of
counting the diaper
diapers.
prices and they're like, in our time, it was cloth diapers. So you wash that thing. You can't be that
And if
expensive
it
then.
turns
Now
cream,
it's
it's up
diapers.
to you. Our mothers would compete that they make sure that they keep them white, wash them. But now there's diapers, and also our health systems in Africa. Maternity is not free, I think.
In Kenya, there is a government policy that says that maternity is free.
Okay.
Or is a lot more affordable, but these reports are often conflicting.
Yes.
So in the government hospitals, you can get assistance. Yes, you can have your child in government hospitals. However, like I said, this information sometimes is conflicting, but they are trying at least.
Did I think your network dropped there.
Oh, I was saying that at least the government is trying, and like we said, there's conflicting reports about how effective or how it is implemented.
And then there was also this is a comment from Enin Sioka, says, I saw a woman in Turkana, is that in Kenya, who lost a kid
Yes,
due to hunger. She said the reason she had over 10 kids is because she knows such calamities would come and she may lose a few kids, so she had to get more children so a few can make it to adulthood and help her. And also there was another one about cheap labor, especially in the cotton farming. So our parents would have more children have cheap labor from their own children. This I can't believe, Wanjiku. Do
And
you
this I really believe, and this is why. See, when your family, not your family, when a family, when a family is depending on their farm for subsistence, you disappeared a little. Are you there?
and you are frozen? You're like gone. I think okay. That
Yes. Okay. So I was saying, if your family is depending on your farm for sustenance, then you want to have optimal productivity in this farm. However, because the government hasn't put in place how to make it easier to buy machinery for the farm, then what do you depend on? You depend on the people that can create, and the people you don't need to pay. So you educate them, and then after school, they know their job. They come and work in the shamba. It is the reality, and it is the
I
same
used
situation
I
that was
used
seen
to
just
hate
before the
that
Industrial
growing up.
Revolution.
I used to hate that growing up. Rainy season. You come back from
You
school.
knew the duty.
Yes, maize. You know, our staple food in Zimbabwe. And oh my, I used to hate that. And now when I see this, I feel like, okay, so was this the idea?
Yeah, you see what they did now.
You come back from school,
Uh-huh.
you have your lunch. If you have homework, you have homework. The next thing on the field. Hadza, we used to use,
Yep.
oh God.
Ay,
Ah,
ay, ay. I
these are some of the
my
things.
village was a little.
Your village was a little.
Yes, yes. These are some of the things.
No, I said these are some of the things that I wouldn't want to see my children go through. I mean, well, of course, times change, but
Yeah. But I just want to come back to the digging part. Not having many children so that they can, dig your farm. But this experience of farming, would you blame your parents because of it?
for what?
For having to farm after school, like knowing, yeah, yeah, yeah,
No,
today is maize day. Oh my God.
I mean that's survival. I mean it's fine. It's home chores, family chores, or whatever. It's fine. I'm just
Yeah,
expressing that personally. I used to hate it. I used to hate it,
yeah.
but I'm just referring to this person that is talking about cotton farms, like cheap labor,
Mm,
culture, religion. Some don't believe in contraception, which is true. We have a church sector in Zimbabwe, the white garment,
mhm,
the white garment, the Mapostori. They don't believe in contraception. It's
mhm.
taboo. Yes, it's taboo. And then here he or she also says access to information and contraception. Like you said, the other thing is also information, lack of
Yes,
information. Yeah.
yes. Luck. This is something that sometimes it feels a little overwhelming. So I keep acknowledging. So anyone who's listening and thinking you have no idea what you're talking about, I keep acknowledging my privilege. And my privilege is not because I, I even spoke Swahili. It's not because I am rich and I have access to all of these things. The only thing that I know I have access to is information.
Mm,
This is my privilege. I know if I
mm.
wanted to find out, for example, if I can even right now, I can just Google what are the effects of using IUD, for example. It's
Blah
so
blah
easy for
blah.
me. I
Yeah.
have this
Mm,
access. I can Google very easily.
mm.
I have access to this information, and this is my privilege. But how to make sure that this information maybe is not online, but is so easily accessible to especially in remote places? not so that they don't get many children, but so that they can decide the number of children they actually want to get.
Mm.
So that they know when it comes to voting for which parliamentary seat, they know they can examine, is this person actually telling us that they will be bringing healthcare solutions to us? Are they telling us that they will make more kindergartens for our children? Are they, they're able to examine these issues broadly, but the information needs to be there. And it feels overwhelming, like I said, to ensure that information is everywhere. I mean,
So,
this is one way to do
mm,
it. Like, if anyone needs information, they ask us and we will get the information for them.
all right. What are also the advantages of having more children? Everything in life has disadvantages and
The
advantages.
advantages of, yes. So, I also from a lineage of big family. So, my grandmother had 10, 11 children. Our family reunions are, I don't even know what to call it. If all the grandchildren, all the aunts, all the married cousins and all of that were to come together, we are definitely more than 60. And I know that's a small number in depending on who's listening, but we
Mm.
are about 60. One of the one of the things that I think from my grandmother's side that I always think, oh, she really nailed that, was the closeness that I see amongst my aunties. Of course, there's always sibling rivalry. That is always there, whether you're two, whether you're 50.
It's
Maybe when you're
normal,
50
yeah.
children, you don't have so much because you don't even know who the first one is. You don't even have a relationship with the first one because they're so far in age. But
Mm.
this cohesion among family and just the sisters, they're all women and one son, and just them knowing that they have each other's back. I think this is something that obviously you can have with a small family, but you feel the impact more when the number is bigger. There's strength in numbers, and it's the same in joy. So when this family comes together, see how they're interacting, and we all have to introduce to each other, ourselves to each other, because we don't remember who is who. The last time you saw someone, they were like this, and then suddenly, they were way grown. I think this
Yeah.
joy is one of the advantages of taking a bigger family. If able to bring them together to the point where they are happy to see each other.
There's someone here says that there is something that we cannot avoid, which is death. The other reason why I would want more children is because, in case, then they put God forbid in brackets, 2 or 3 children die, I will still be left with some children.
It's true you cannot ignore death, and I will not to answer that question because I think it's a very philosophical question. I will pose that question to the person who asked that question and ask, what if you die before your children?
No, we're just
That's all I
look.
will say to that.
We, yeah,
God
death.
forbid
It's
again.
the same, yes, but it's the same as our parents that give birth to so many children, so that when these children grow up, they will now take care of them. How do you know that
Yes,
you will live long for these children to
exactly.
take care of you? So,
Yeah. It's the same. Like when we are talking about death, it's unpredictable. I mean, in some cases are predictable, like what we talked about, child welfare at a very young age, yes. But when it comes to determining or planning for the future, it's really by grace and yeah, we can't predict that 30 years from now my child will be providing for me. You can't decide that. You don't know how the
mm,
economy will be. I mean, so much has changed already with corona, so there are things that you cannot pre-plan.
yeah. So
I
you
see a
also
question here
mentioned,
from Serkan again,
uh-huh.
and he asks, are there parts of Africa, east, west, central, or southern, where planning is a more liberal issue, which is removed from religious pressures? I put my feet up because because this is very fascinating. I personally do not know places where family planning is a liberal issue. I think I'm sure it's a more hashed kind of topic.
Mm.
Like people know, like the women know, but it's a need to know basis. So if you get married, you'll have the older woman advising you on how to pace your children, for example, especially in the more remote areas or more rural settings. You'd have, the older woman who is the one who's telling you how to please your husband, would be the one who will tell you, now when you have a child, you need to, pay yourself, wait a little bit, take this. And I actually,
Uh-huh.
and
Uh-huh.
I need to get the studies for this. I need to get the studies for this, but there are herbs that people used to take for abortion. There are herbs that older women knew. If you take this, you will lose your baby. And it's not just in Kenyan communities. I think this is across the whole continent. In different communities, they knew how to do this thing. The older women knew how to do this thing. And this only serves to say that sometimes the women know and just need to talk and share this information for when they do not want a child, for example. It's just about being a person to talk to in my community or wherever I am. But I don't know of any part where family planning is liberal. Do you know anywhere?
No, I don't. But I mean, we can find out, we can research, and obviously on our next chat we can answer certain on that.
Ooh, I just saw the time because you said our next chat. The
Yes,
time is going so fast.
unless you have anything else that you want to add on. Oh yeah, before you go, and coronavirus lockdown, I
Yes.
mean, people are stuck in their homes with their partners. The only entertainment, if not watching and listening to Wanjiku and Josey, would be either movies, and you get tired of that, and then obviously the adult entertainment. When you are saying that they can only visit the health centers after the lockdown. So babies, more babies. There'll be a lot of COVID-19 babies, quarantine babies.
Fast all. I think that people should use protection.
People should.
Please use protection if you're not planning to have a should use protection if they're not planning to have a child. So in the urban
Was it
setting
not?
where more
Was it not in Kenya that where was it that they were saying that condoms are short protection? People can't get
they
protection.
were
I can't remember which African country that we had on the show. Shortage of protection. So
this is okay. Listen, guys. If you're listening to Josey talking about adult entertainment, please, if you're a woman and you're not sure, me, I'm not talking to the men. This particular part is not for the men. If you're a woman and you're not sure that you're ready to have a child, please go to the health dispensary, go to the hospital, go to the nearest service, go to the chemist, ask for what contraception you can use. Okay, please do it for yourself if you're not ready. If you're
yeah.
looking to have a child, please carry on. I think bottom line, before we go, bottom line, when it comes to family planning, I think it should be about choice and access to information and access to the tools. The woman needs to know what she wants. Does she want to have a child? And the reason I'm focusing more on the woman, it's not to say that the men do not have a responsibility. In fact, and my brother, if my brother is watching this, he knows. I tell him, never come home and tell us that a woman has trapped you with a child. Trapped you how? Trapped you how? Never. Because I believe
He's so
the
he's so
responsibility
unlucky.
of both people.
Your brother is so unlucky to have you as a sister. Look at you. You're already
No, he's
telling
very lucky. He's very lucky. He's very lucky because that it's his responsibility to ensure that he gets a child when he's ready to have a child. It's not the responsibility of his girlfriend. Actually, one of the comments that we received from Sekamate Kaima Musa, I asked him who is responsible for the number of children you would have, and he said my wife would be. And this attitude is the one that I am against. I think each person should be responsible for family planning, both men and women. If you're having any kind of coitus, please, you're responsible. If you make someone else pregnant, if you're a man and you make someone else pregnant, do not come and say they tried to trap you. They tried to trap you. Where was the condom? If you're a woman, and this is only in consensual situations, please note the different scenarios where people are pregnant about consensual coitus. Consensual, it's your responsibility to make sure you're having condoms or protection of whatever form. I want to, before we move on, Sarshan says that in South Africa, perhaps they are more liberal in family planning. I mean, and then he adds on, in Ethiopia, they advertise condoms quite freely. If we're talking
we
about
in
advertising condoms, we have the
Zimbabwe
same
we
in
advertise.
Kenya. We have billboards. I think, yeah, I think there's advertising for condoms, and I remember once there was also an advertisement for Femi Plan, which is the pills that you can have on Kenyan TV. So there's that. I think it's one to have a condom. So I would separate these two issues. That's what I think.
Okay. I want to say Wanjiku for president. I don't know which
Yes,
president. President for which country? Germany?
president for the womb, for my womb.
Okay, Wanjiku is president of her own womb for now. Anyway, thank you so much, Wanjiku, for your time. I really had fun. I really enjoyed this chat.
Thank
Next time,
you.
I think we need to put a man in between us. We need a male guest for our next topic.
If you find anyone who can take me on, fine.
All right. Thank you so much
No,
for joining
seriously,
me.
I'm happy to talk about this.
Yeah, thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.